So what you're looking at the moment is my terminal window. Now, I want everyone to sort of essentially get to the point where they can live and breathe using their terminal window. If you have to open up, if you're on macOS, if you have to open up your Finder, that's like -5 points. There's no point system, but just think about it in terms of -5 points. All right, a little slap on the wrist. Why? Because I want everyone to feel like they're able to navigate their operating system simply using their terminal window, to be able to see what's in any directory, to move around the directory, to open files, to do things. All right. It's much quicker rather than rely on the Finder. Now, most people are going to be much more comfortable using the Explorer or whatever it is on Windows or the Finder on Mac OS. But try and challenge yourself to just use the terminal window. If you're in Windows, find a way to use Git Bash as your terminal shell. It's going to be a lot easier to use because I'll mostly be using Bash as a way to operate my file system, and the same with you all. Now, PowerShell is also a Windows alternative, and that's also a possibility. So if you want to, that's also fine. But primarily try and use Git Bash if you're on Windows, and that will be helpful. If there are ever sort of discrepancies between Windows and macOS, I'll try and point them out. And if you find them, just let me know, and we can just make sure there's always both options available to anyone. All right. So we should be quite agnostic to the operating system. It shouldn't matter that much whether you're on Windows, macOS, or Linux. Doesn't really matter. But if things come up that are challenging, you don't know how to do because I've only explained it one way, let me know, and I'll be able to give you the alternative. All right. Cool. So what you're looking at here is my terminal window, and I'm inside the Scrabble challenge. I want to, let's go back out, and I'm in a random temporary directory. Just got one directory inside of it. So what I'm going to do is going to go to my GitHub account, and I'm going to create just an empty directory, an empty repository. Let's move your faces out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. So I've gone to this plus button up on the top right on my GitHub account, new repository. And this is what I want one of you to do when you're in your pairs. So one of you be the repository owner. So let's say this is JS fundamentals test. Create the repository. And you probably get to a screen like this, and we're going to clone it down. We're going to clone an empty repository. So I'm going to click on this button here to get onto my clipboard. Make sure it's on SSH because you will set up your SSH keys, and go back to your terminal window and use Git to essentially make a request to the GitHub API and download all of the files and folders in this repository. Cool. So it says you appear to have cloned an empty repository. There's nothing inside of it. So once you're there, that's step one. You cloned an empty repository, but I want you to add a collaborator. So your pair partner can also work on the same repository as you. So go into the settings on your repository that you've created, the repository owner, manage access. You might have to put in your password if you haven't logged in for a while, and invite a collaborator. This little green button down here, and search for someone's name. So let's Mo. What's your username? GitHub username?
Me?
Yep.
GNAYIM. GNAYIM. Yes.
Look at that. You're going to be my proud pair partner.
All right.
So you're going to have to go to your email to accept this request. It says pending.
Okay.
So go to your email and make sure you have the request.
Could I ask,
Yes, Ryan.
You set this, when you created it, you set it as public. Should we do that or should we make it private?
It really doesn't matter. Public. Okay, so it does matter, but not really. Keep it as public. Everything that we do should be public in terms of the stuff that you're working on. If you're creating your own repositories, all the things that are in digital futures are likely private unless I've specifically said they're public. So when you fork them, they'll be private still. If you then make them public, you remove the link between them. So digital future stuff will be private. Your own should be public.
Okay, thank you.
Allow me to sort of see it, which is one of the most important things. Cool. So well, let's chat until Mo finds the email and accepts.
Yeah, I think I just accepted it now.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one repository. I'm actually going to draw this out so we can also see it visually. I'm looking for the Miro board. Can't remember which one it is, so let's actually go find the right one. Miro board, this one. Let's also visualize what I'm doing at the moment in a sort of a more graphic way. So what I've just done, what I'm doing at the moment is, if we think about the difference between our local environment, which is on your machine, and our remote environment, which at the moment is on GitHub. All right, we've gone through a process where we created a repository as noted by this box. And we've gone through a process where we brought it down to our local machine. What if we had to name this arrow, Benjamin, what would we call this arrow? What command did I run that represents this arrow?
Is that me, sorry?
Yeah, which Ben? There are two of us, so it's going to be quite awkward.
Who wants to be, any difference in the way that you'd like to be called? Anyone have a preference for Ben, Benji, Benjamin?
No, I'm easy, to be honest. Ben, do you have a preference?
I prefer Ben, to be honest.
Whatever then. I'll be non-Ben, whatever that is. Ben,
Sir Clayton, how about
that? Yeah, that'll do.
Okay, I'll just say Ben C for the moment and Ben F. Let's do it that way. Okay, so Ben C. What command did I just run that represents this arrow to take my remote repository on GitHub down to my machine?
Clone.
Exactly. Cool. So this was git clone, and I specifically gave it I'm going to call it the URL. It's not quite the URL, but the URL of the repository. The SSH one is slightly different to the HTTP one. So I cloned the repository and it's down on my machine. Cool. Now what we have to do is also, this is essentially number one, pair partner number one. We need to do it again for a second time for pair partner number two. Mo, it's your turn now. Go find this repository.
Yep.
I'm going to put it into the main channel. And I want you to clone it down.
Okay.
So same process here. We've added a collaborator,
Sorry, will he not be able to clone it unless you've given him the permission, as you've done?
Correct. Well, no, he can clone it if it's public, but he won't be able to push towards it.
Okay.
So when you add someone as a collaborator, they can push work to that repository. So you can clone any repository that you find on GitHub as long as it's public. you can fork them as well. So once you've given access, they can push to it, which is what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to then person one do some work, and then add and commit, and then push.
I've just cloned it now. Yeah.
So we're going to do one cycle of this, where now we both cloned it. I'm going to do some work, stage some changes, make a commit, and then push the work to the remote repository. After I've done that, we need to update, or Mo needs to update his local repository by doing a git pull. Okay. So let's do the first part of this. I'm going to let's create a README. I'm using an editor called Atom because I grew up with it. Some of you, or most of you, probably will be on VS Code, which is a fantastic editor. So I'm going to add in here, this is a new change. All yours now, Mo. I'm calling you Mo. Is there a reason why I'm doing this? Did you tell me at some point? Is it lodged in my brain?
No, it's fine. Mo is fine. Ash is fine. I've got middle name, Ash. So
Ash. Is it Ash then? Should I call you Ash better?
it doesn't matter, to be honest. People call me Mo, people call me Ash.
I think I remember
yeah.
I chatted to you in the group when we did the other thing the other week.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, to be honest. I don't mind anything.
With anyone, just let me know if I mispronounce and you try to call something else. I think that's important. Okay, so I've added a new change to my file, and I can have a look at this by always running git status. Now, given that I haven't changed directory, you can't see it, so let's actually change into it so I can see what I'm doing. And you can see here that there is nothing here. Why? Because I haven't written it in the right place. Okay, so when I created my README, I created it in the wrong place. So let's move back out. I created a README. Let's move the README. This is me moving far too fast. Okay, so I moved the README back into the right place. It's in the right directory. It makes a little bit more sense. So you can see on the left-hand side, I've got the directory here, JS Fundamentals Test, and I've got the file called README inside of it. So now when I have a look at git status, I can see here what I was expecting at the beginning of this. I've got an untracked file, the README, the Markdown file. MD stands for Markdown. It's just a file format, allowing you to do a few like formats like using asterisks or hashtags to denote different headings. So you can see things change. And if you wanted, it's just a file format called Markdown. So what I'm trying to demonstrate is the process of making a change, staging the change. So I can see it's untracked. If I want to stage it, I use git add. Git add says this is a change that we want to capture. So I'm going to add the file. I can now have a look when I run my git status again, that it's now green, is ready to be committed. Now, I don't need to commit straight away. I could have, it is your turn. Have a look at git status. You can see the original staged change, but still more that I can now change again. So let's go through and add it. Have a look at my git status, and I can see that I have my file ready to be committed. So let's go ahead and now commit it. So I've gone through this process here where I've gone this purple, the add. You always add changes first, and then you can commit, and you group your changes into commits. So git commit initial change. Let's be very descriptive. It's clearly very descriptive. Git commit initial change, and I make a commit message. You have a quick look at the history. The simple one is this, git log, and you can see the author of the commit, when it happened, and then the commit message. So you can see a history of changes. Once you've done that, you've committed, you can then push. So before I do that, always look at your git status. You can see on branch main, your branch is based on origin main, but the upstream is gone. Let's double check what remotes I have, so I can see that I'm still pushing towards my origin, which is good. So git push origin main. So when you use the push command, you push to the name of the repository, which you always see on the left here. It's like the nickname, and the branch. Now on the branch main, always the default branch. Now GitHub is main. They switched it from the name of master, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. Now all the default branch names are main. You always push to a repository name and the branch. Git push origin main. Cool. So I've now pushed. I'll see it in GitHub. So I've done this part here where I've done the add commit, and now I just did the push. So I should now see that stuff in my GitHub account. So let's refresh the page, and I see my work here. Okay, so this is part one of pairing. Is someone does some work on their machine while pairing, they push some work up to their repository, and then partner two now pulls. So Mo, please, do you want to share your screen? I'm going to stop sharing.
Yep.
And let's stop. No, share your screen.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. Do I just pull it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before you do, let's double check and refresh the browser behind your terminal window so you can see that README. Just show that you can now see it as well.
What was that? Sorry. Go on the browser.
Yeah, just refresh the browser because you should be able to now see the
all right. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So now you're here. You've cloned it, right? So change directory.
Yes.
Into that directory.
Okay. Hold on.
Cool. Yeah, list everything just to see what's inside of it. Want to change into the test
So,
version?
I'm going to test here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's double check with git status. Cool. For some reason, you're on branch master. How fascinating. Can you show me all the branches? Actually, go git branch -- all.
Branch and then
-- all.
-- all.
Not slash dash.
Dash.
I imagine it's
Like that, yeah.
Cool. Nothing. All right, that's fine. So now pull everything. Git pull, and that might just work by itself. Cool. So let's have a look inside this. So list everything in this directory. Okay. We don't yet see the new file. So can you show me all the branches again by going git branch -- all? Interesting. Cool. Okay, so we do have the main branch there. So can you use switch to switch the main branch? So I think it's git switch main. I think that's the new command they have these days. Yeah. Okay, and then let's look at everything. So use list to list everything. Boom. Okay, so we see the README now. So when you use the pull command, you pulled everything, but there was an additional branch that was set up because when you cloned it and you cloned the empty repository, your configuration for Git set up a default master branch rather than a default main branch. So it's good actually to experience that. So just everyone be aware of that. If that happens to you, don't worry. Just switch to the main branch. We no longer use the master branch by default for whatever reason. Okay, so now it's your turn to make a change to this file. So open up in your editor.
Which editor are you use? This code is it?
Any editor that you've been using so far.
Okay. So is it code?
Dot.
Dot.
Yeah.
What, dot over there or afterwards?
Code space dot. Dot is essentially the representation of your current working directory.
Right. So just code dot, is it? Yeah.
So the dot means you open everything in the
current directory.
Thing with VS Code.
Yeah. So usually you change directory into whatever working directory you have, and then you go code dot, and it opens up that directory. Cool.
I press that. Or
just open that up, and add whatever text feels inspiring to you. Great.
Well, yes, yeah.
Great. Now save it.
I feel inspired.
You've even got the caps on this.
Oh my goodness! Look at that. We're mobbing now, so everyone is chipping in. Yes. Apparently, someone says you forgot not only the capital letter on this, but the full.
The capital.
I was just thinking you might not know that he's finished the sentence yet. He could be thinking about it.
That's true. I'll make you happy. I'll just do that.
When you're pairing, always just wait and allow the driver who's writing just a little time to finish. All right.
Yeah. So let me save again.
Cool.
Yeah, it's done.
Now,
okay.
Go look at Git status on your terminal.
Yep.
Cool. Now add the change using git add.
Well, they're going to get add.
It says there, use git and add in the file to update what we committed. So what file have you changed?
What's the readme file? No, sorry. Is it that file? Readme? That file?
See it right there. You see it's modified. So you want to stage that change. So use git add and then the file name.
So read. That's it. Yeah. All right.
Now commit it. So use git commit and then do an inline message to keep it short and sweet. Git commit -m.
Ed, sorry, well, I usually do git add dot. Is there any reason not to do that?
Hold on one second. We'll get to that in a second. Git commit -m and then provide a message. The M stands for message, exactly. So add a wonderful descriptive message for what you've just done.
Okay. Let's test.
Great. Nice.
Yeah.
Boom. Now push it. Git push origin main. Cool. All right, where origin is the name of the repository and main is the branch. You've been on main branch, so you push to main branch. Cool. Now have a look on your GitHub behind, and you'll see the
yes.
This is testing. That's cool. So essential collaboration. This is how we're going to collaborate when you're working on one repository. People you pair together on one screen. You do some work together. You push it up, and then you switch whoever's driving. And you go through this process where you push and pull. All right. Back to your question, Grant. Remind me what it was.
In the same way as you did the code dot to open everything, I would usually do git add dot. Is there any reason not to have done that?
Yes, so at the moment it's probably quite easy just to do git add dot. things will change at some point when you've got a lot more files, a lot more different changes that are happening. And so it's usually better to be more specific about what changes you want to. So git add does everything in the current working directory. And you might want to be a little bit more specific. You might want to only do parts of the things that you want to, you might want to group up some of your work that you've done into legible atomic commits. So you might have done a bunch of work, changed like 3 or 4 different things, but you want to stage one change to make a commit message, these 2 changes to make another commit message, and these other changes. Whereas if you did git add dot, you would do everything in one, and then it'd be difficult to separate them out.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
So you can use git add dot fine if you know there's only one thing you've changed. You can use git add file to do a file at a time, or even more control, you can do it at the patch level. So you explore git add then -p. That's something that I use a lot. Git add -p. But for now, git add file name works great. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions on what we just saw? Because you're about to go do this yourselves.
Yeah, one really quick question. When you list the branch when you're pushing, is that the branch that you're on or the branch that you're pushing to?
It should be. They don't always have to be the same, but they should be the same usually. All right. So you're usually pushing, or usually work on the same branch, whichever is the representation. You push from the same branch to branch. There's some rare occasions, probably not for a while yet, that we may want to end up pushing to different branches, but it's unlikely, and sometimes it gets a bit confusing. So for now, always think about it in tandem. You might want to switch to a different branch and then push the equivalent branch to the remote, and just make sure you're always at the same, the mirror copy. All right. Good question, Bridget.
It's not necessarily a question, but I was just going to say I have a meeting in 30 minutes, but I'll be back.
Cool. All right. Other questions? Yeah.
Can I ask, just in general for pair programming, would you encourage the use of something like VS Code Live Share or something like that?
Yeah, it's a really great tool. I recommend that. I think in the previous cohort, some of them like to use that. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely find something that works for both of you. As far as I remember, it's dependent on both of you using VS Code, right? You both need to be using VS Code. So if that works, absolutely have at it.
I have another. I have a question about.
It doesn't do audio, it doesn't.
The way to like.
Right, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to do it first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I had a question about like, is there any way I can like see what my pair partner's doing before they actually commit? Like, other than them, I guess they could share their screen with me. I guess that would work, but.
Exactly. So the previous cohort, and what I recommend is to use Discord or Zoom to share your screen while you're working together. And the idea is you're always working on one screen. So you nominate a driver who does all the typing, who shares their screen, and the navigator then works with them to ask questions and whatnot. And then we switch a lot. We switch those roles. And in order to switch, you push your work, get it back up to GitHub, and the person then pulls it down.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So you've heard me say these words a couple of times now, the driver and the navigator. I'm going to share a document that sort of outlines some of these roles and how to do this. But in a nutshell, it's quite simple. Whoever's driving is the person who's writing code and sharing their screen. And the navigator is the one who's like thinking about the problem, asking questions, and thinking about how to go about or where to go. And between the two of you, you do some work, you push it up, and then you switch roles. And you should be aiming to switch either like every 10 minutes or when you've just like solved something, and then you can switch and then you go on to the next problem. Pairing is all about sharing headspace. The more often you switch without it feeling cumbersome, the better. Sometimes if you switch every minute, clearly that's ridiculous. But if you're switching every 2 hours, that's a little bit too long to be able to switch those roles and share that same headspace. Sometimes what happens with pair programming is that people end up doing side-by-side pair programming, which isn't pair programming. It's just side-by-side programming. And so we want to try and avoid that. And so one person should be using their screen and sharing it, and the person working with them. Doesn't mean to say you can't do some research or look things up, but you should, the main focus should be on the pair programming. Now, this isn't the only time I'm going to talk about pair programming. There's going to be things that feel difficult, and it's a skill in itself to think about how to get better at it. How do you pair programs? So give each other some slack. It's going to be a bit, maybe a bit weird. Maybe it's the first time some of you have done any pair programming before. Most of us usually have just written code for ourselves, but when we get to a course like this and haven't really experienced working with others in this way. Have some fun with it, right? So the work you're going to do is on the fundamentals. So let's go, now I'm a bit confused. I'm going to go delete this because I don't need this anymore. Actually, I'm going to keep this out because otherwise Mo will get upset. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll like, get rid of it. I can't remember which one it is. You're going to be doing this one. So you probably got to challenge 6. I want you to keep going from challenge 7 onwards. So you might want to choose one of your repositories and keep working, maybe go through and explain what your implementation for challenge 6, whether it's first driving, and then have a look at challenge 7. And there's enough here to keep you occupied for the rest of this afternoon and further. If you do end up going through all of them, just let me know and I'll give you more work. On this course, there's an infinite amount of work. You'll never ever get to the point where you've done all the work, all right? So just rest easy in that fact. And it's not about completing work, it's just about doing the learning, all right? Emphasis on learning, not completion. If you ever feel like you have completed everything, let me know, because I will give you more. I will always, always give you more. I like it. It's good fun. Okay. The last thing to do is randomize all the pairs. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms and do it. Should I do that? I guess that's an easy way to do this. Yeah, let's do it that way. I'll use breakout rooms for today. Tomorrow onwards, I'll talk a little bit more about how I'll do the randomizing of the pairs. You know what you're going to be doing. Any questions before I get you on your way? Cool. Let me find it. This is a fantastic set of resources to thinking about pair programming. You don't need to read it all now, but maybe over this week, have a look at different parts of it. Maybe start from the case for pair programming, your first session, and just read through a bunch of these. The template about how to do it is something that I want everyone to get better at, thinking about what work you're going to do and agree with your pair partner how you want to pair.
Sorry, should we make a repo just for challenge 7 then?
You should be able to, on your fork, add someone as a collaborator and work with them. But now that I'm thinking about it, you're raising an interesting point. I think for the purpose of this exercise, it's going to be easier if you do create your own repository. There isn't that much text, so you can have a look at the Digital Futures account and just know what the challenge is, paste it into your new repository and think that way. I think you're right. It'll be easier if you create your own. You'll create a new repository, right? That you don't have to worry about on your own fork adding and changing. All right. Good point. Any other questions? Cool. We have 20, so we need 10 rooms. We have 3 o'clock, so let's do 1 hour until 4. We'll do a quick regroup and we have a slightly shorter second round, all right? Okay. Breakout rooms, recreate 10 rooms, assign automatically. Cool. Remember, the theme of this is just have some fun. Don't worry about where you get to. Just enjoy with each other, doing some pair programming, using Git and solving some problems, all right? I'll close these rooms at 4, have a quick recap, and then open up another session until 5, all right? Enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions or get stuck, all right?